Purpose of this video is to introduce you to a mechanism called Unix filters. We've already met one Unix filter. That Unix filter is cat. And the interesting thing about cat is it's not really a filter at all. What it does is it simply shows the contents of a file to the screen. So if I say cat sampler.txt, then the sampler file is placed on the screen. Now, Unix filters all have some things in common. The first thing is that they expect an input. The input, by default, comes from standard input. What is standard input? Let's remember, standard input is the keyboard. Now, if I just type cat and nothing else, that filter is just sitting there and waiting. And so I'm going to go ahead and type in a line, meow, mix, now. And if I want to get out of the session, I simply type Control D. That's the end of file symbol. Control D. So all cat does is anything I enter into it, you hit enter and it echoes that line back, a line at a time. Now, what really happens behind the scenes when I type cat sampler.txt, what is really happening is this. When you use a file name as an argument, I'm going to use the special symbol less than, which redirects standard input. So what we're going to do is say, okay, cat, act as if I had typed in all of sampler.txt into the keyboard, and all at once, the entire file is shown. So when I use that file name as an argument, like this, it's shortcut for doing this. Okay, those two things do exactly the same thing because they tell the cat command, instead of getting things from the keyboard, get them from this file. This is redirection of standard input. There's also, as we will see, redirection of standard output, and we'll talk about that in here because it's a fairly straightforward thing. Now, let's show you another example of a filter. Actually, a very simple one. If I type WC and hit enter, hey there, Mr. Jones, and I hit Control D. Control D. Oh, what happened? I got these three numbers. So the WC command expects a bunch of lines. And so what it's telling us is that there's 3 lines, 4 words. Evidently I have a space in there somewhere. And there are 20 characters were entered. Now if you actually count the characters, 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ooh, it appears there's only 15, but one thing that gets included is new line characters are included. And possibly the Control D as well. And so if you do WC from standard input, yeah, it's going to behave a little strangely. Now, the way we actually use WC is something like this. We say WC, and then we say a file name, which is the same thing as doing this. All right. And it will tell us that there are 68 lines in the file sampler.txt, 338 characters, 338 words, and 1900 characters. Now, if you want to see them one at a time, you can do this, and that'll just tell you the number of characters, and it will also put out the name of the file. You can do this. you probably guess to get the number of lines, 1 does this. And to get the number of words, well, there you go. Okay, so it's really three filters in one. So filters read input a line at a time. So they you can think of them as something that auto loops through a file, automatically goes through the file line by line. That's how it traverses. Now there are 2 other filters that are kind of useful. More. Okay, I'm going to use more on a big file. On a Linux machine, this is the standard place where one puts the system dictionary. More allows you to page through a file in one direction. You can only go forward. If you hit the space bar, the next screen fill shows. If you want to search, you can use Vim commands. Okay, so it's skipping and it finds the first instance of cow and shows it to you. Right here, here it is, be coward. All right. If you want to get out of more, you just type Q. Now more has a friend called less. Less is actually better than more. More is an older command. But what less allows you to do is it gives you not just forward mobility in a file, but you can use the arrow keys and you can go backwards. And I do believe you can do something like this. And it'll go to line 5000. Okay, so it's got lots and lots of mobility. A lot of VI commands work in more. So more or work in less. So less is actually obviates the more command. And if you want to view a file without editing it, less is an extremely convenient tool. You can look at the file, you can search the file, you can use a lot of VI commands to move around, but when you are invoking this filter, one thing that does not happen is it does not change the file. So it's a safe way to view the contents of a file. To get out of less, Q. Okay. Here's a couple of other filters I may as well show you at this juncture. If I go head, all right, and I say, let's go ahead and do the dictionary file. And I'm just going to arrow over here, take advantage of command line history. Head shows me the first 10 lines. Okay, if I want to see the first 5 lines, the 10 is the default. I can go like this, and it'll show me only 5 lines. Now, head has a buddy. His name is tail. You'll never guess what tail does, right? Okay, let's see what tail does. Tail works just like head. By default, it shows you the last 10 lines. Okay, but there you go. There's the last 5 lines in the dictionary file. And the dictionary file on this machine and on Linux machines in general contains a lot of very strange stuff. It's used by things like spell checkers. So you've learned about more and less. They're ways, read-only ways to view a file. WC stands for word count. It is a filter that goes through the file a line at a time and tells you information about how many characters, words, and lines are in the file. Now, one other command that I'll talk about is called grep. And grep is a very interesting and extremely powerful command. What it allows you to do is it allows you to print out lines in a file that contain a particular search string. So the way you use grep is you say grep, all right, and then you say something like this. I'm going to grep for YZY. You'll often hear Unix nerds say I'm grepping for something when they're searching for it. So So the question that's going to be answered here is, are there any words in the dictionary, because the words all come one to a line, that contain consecutively the letters Y, Z, and Y? This seems like an unlikely proposition. However, there's a few of them. You can see that there are several of them. Now, while we talk about redirection of standard input, let's talk about redirection of standard output. I can do this if I have a command that's going to create a whole lot of text on the screen and I want to capture it in a file. It's very easy. All I have to do is use a greater than sign. That redirects standard output. So the output of this command will, via this funnel, be stuck into that file. Okay? The redirection of standard input is also a funnel, but it's funneling something into input as opposed to funneling something out of output. And if I do this, I now have all those words saved in a text file. So Unix filters walk through a file a line at a time and do different things. And we have learned about cat. Cat is not a filter at all. It simply shows the entire file. More shows a file on the screen a line at a time. It's a read-only filter, and you can search forward in the file, but you can't go backward. That's why less is better. Less gives you backward and forward mobility in the file and really obviates more, but I put more in there for historical reasons. grep allows you to search the lines of a file for a substring, and it prints out all lines that contain that substring. WC, word count, gives you the number of characters, lines, and words in a file. Head shows you the top of the file. If you do head-20, you'll get the top 20 lines. Tail shows you the bottom of a file. So these are Unix filters. Unix filters are means of processing a file a line at a time and gaining information about it. Some are read-only and simply display the file in a certain way, as more and less do. Cat is a non-filter. It simply puts that file to the screen. As a matter of fact, you can give cat a whole list of files, and it will show one after the other in seriatim. grep prints out only the lines containing the string that you grep for. So these are Unix filters. They allow you to extract information out of files without a heck of a lot of programming. It's a fairly simple interface that we have here. Now, in the second part of this exposition, what we're going to do is show you how to connect these or chain these processes so you can do some fairly complex things. So the actions of these filters can be combined and can achieve some very sophisticated effects, really without using any complex programming language or worrying about looping, because Unix filters, they loop for you.